Hello, friends. I've got another collection of reality glitches for you today. And I have to tell you, some of these really got under my skin. You know that feeling when something happens that just shouldn't be possible? When the rules of reality seem to bend or break for just a moment. That's what we're diving into today. I've been going through submissions all week, and the stories I've picked for you are the ones that made me stop and think, wait, what? So settle in, maybe grab a drink, and let's explore some experiences that people just cannot explain, no matter how hard they try. Story 1, The Birthday That Happened Twice, by huge Time Loop Tanya. I need to tell someone about this because I'm starting to question my own sanity. Last month was my daughter's 7th birthday. We had the whole thing planned. Princess theme, pink decorations everywhere, 15 kids from her class coming over. My husband took the day off work. We'd been prepping for weeks. The party was on Saturday, October 14th. I remember every detail. My daughter woke up at 6:23 a.m., way too excited to sleep. She wore her purple unicorn pajamas to breakfast. I made her special birthday pancakes with whipped cream smiley faces. My husband gave her the bike she'd been begging for, pink with rainbow tassels on the handlebars. The party started at 2 p.m. Kids arrived, chaos ensued. Normal birthday party stuff, you know. We played pin the tail on the unicorn. Emma from her class threw up after eating too much cake, red velvet with cream cheese frosting. My mother-in-law showed up late, as always, complaining about traffic on Highway 84. We sang Happy Birthday at 3:47 p.m., because I remember checking my phone right before we lit the candles. My daughter wished for a puppy. She told everyone her wish, which made all the kids laugh. By 5 p.m., parents were picking up their kids. By 6, we were exhausted, cleaning up pink streamers and half-eaten pieces of cake. My daughter fell asleep on the couch at 7:30, still wearing her princess tiara. Perfect day. Exhausting, but perfect. I woke up the next morning to my daughter jumping on our bed, screaming, "It's my birthday! It's my birthday!" I laughed, told her that her birthday was yesterday. But she insisted no. Today was October 14th. Today was her birthday. I grabbed my phone to show her the date. October 14th, Saturday. The same Saturday. My husband was confused too. He checked his phone, same thing. But here's what really messed with me. The house was clean. No streamers, no leftover cake in the fridge, no pile of presents in the living room. The bike wasn't in the garage. I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing, but I remembered too many specific details. Emma throwing up. My mother-in-law's exact words about the traffic. The time on my phone when we sang Happy Birthday. We went through the entire day again. And I mean the entire day. My daughter woke up at 6:23 a.m. in the same purple unicorn pajamas. I made the same pancakes. My husband gave her the same bike, and she acted like she'd never seen it before. The party played out almost identically. Kids arrived in the same order. We played the same games. But this time, I was watching for Emma to get sick. And she did, right after the cake, just like before. My mother-in-law showed up at the exact same time, complaining about the exact same traffic on Highway 84. At 3:47 p.m., I was staring at my phone when someone said it was time for cake. The exact same time. But here's the one difference. When my daughter made her wish, she whispered it this time. Didn't tell anyone. Later, I asked her what she wished for, and she said, "I can't tell you, or it won't come true." I asked her, "Did you wish for a puppy?" She looked at me really strangely and said, "How did you know that?" I'm a rational person. I'm an accountant, for crying out loud. I deal with numbers and facts. I don't believe in supernatural stuff. But I lived through my daughter's 7th birthday twice. Same date, same events, same conversations. Only the second time stuck. I've gone over this 1,000 times. I wasn't sick. I wasn't on any medication. My husband remembers feeling weird about that day too, like he'd done it all before. But his memory isn't as clear as mine. I still have no explanation. How do you live the same day twice? And why can I remember both versions? All right, so that one seriously messes with my head. The idea of living the same day twice but being aware of it? That's exactly the kind of glitch that makes you question everything. Let me hit you with something a little different. Story 2. The Man in the Grocery Store by You Desert Wanderer. This is going to sound completely insane, but I need to know if anyone else has experienced something like this. 2 weeks ago, I was doing my regular Thursday grocery shopping at the Safeway near my apartment in Phoenix. It was around 8 p.m., pretty quiet, just a few other shoppers around. I was in the cereal aisle, trying to decide between 2 brands, when this older man walked past me. Navy blue windbreaker, khaki pants, white New Balance sneakers, typical dad outfit. He had this distinctive walk, kind of favoring his left leg. Gray hair, probably mid-60s. Nothing weird yet, right? I kept shopping. About 5 minutes later, I'm in the produce section, and the same man walks past me again. Same jacket, same limp, same everything. But here's the thing. He walked past me from the same direction. Like, he came from the cereal aisle direction again, heading toward the back of the store. I thought, okay, maybe he forgot something and doubled back. Whatever. But then it happened again. I'm in the frozen food section, and here comes the same man. Same direction, same pace, same slight limp. 3 times now, this man has walked past me from front to back of the store. I was completely sober, by the way. Stone cold sober. I decided to test this. I positioned myself at the end of an aisle, where I could see, down the main corridor of the store. I waited. Sure enough, about 4 minutes later, here he comes. Navy jacket, khaki pants, that distinctive limp, walking from the front of the store toward the back. I watched him the entire time. He passed the bakery, the deli, headed toward the stockroom doors in back. This time, I followed him. He walked straight to those black rubber doors that lead to the employee area, and just walked through them. No hesitation. I stayed back about 20 feet, watching. The doors swung shut behind him. I stood there for probably 30 seconds, then walked over to peek through the door windows. I could see into the stockroom, boxes, hand trucks, a couple of employees unloading something. No man in a navy jacket. I went to customer service, described the man, asked if he worked there. The woman looked at me like I was crazy. No employee matching that description. She even asked a manager. Nobody knew who I was talking about. I finished shopping. Took me another 20 minutes. And I kept watching for him. Never saw him again that night. But here's the truly weird part. I've been back to that Safeway 3 times since then. Every single time I see him. Same man, same outfit, same path through the store. Always walking from front to back. Always disappearing through those stockroom doors. Last night I tried to take a video, but my phone camera just wouldn't focus on him. Everything else was clear, but he was always blurry, like the phone couldn't lock onto him. I'm starting to avoid that Safeway. I know how this sounds, but I swear I'm not making this up. It's like he's on a loop, just walking the same path over and over. What does that even mean? Stories like that make me wonder if some people or things really are just stuck, like a record skipping. Here's another one that deals with repetition, but in a completely different way. Story 3, The Duplicate Keys, by Chicago Mike 2022. I'm hoping someone here might have an explanation for this, because I'm completely stumped. I live in a third-floor walk-up in Chicago. Been here 4 years. When I moved in, the landlord gave me 2 sets of keys, one main set and one spare. The main set lives on my keychain with my car keys and everything else. The spare set went straight into my kitchen junk drawer, where it's been ever since. About 3 months ago, I was rushing to leave for work and couldn't find my keys. Checked everywhere: couch cushions, yesterday's pants, kitchen counter, bathroom, everywhere. I was going to be late, so I grabbed the spare set from the junk drawer and headed out. When I got home that evening, my main set of keys was sitting right in the middle of my kitchen table. Dead center, impossible to miss. I live alone, and nobody else has keys to my place. My landlord lives in Texas now. He hired a management company to handle the building. Plus, why would anyone break in just to return my keys? But here's where it gets weird. I went to put the spare set back in the junk drawer, and there was already a set of keys in there. The spare set I thought I'd taken to work. I now had 3 identical sets of keys to my apartment. I tested all 3. They all work. They're all worn in the same places. The keychains are identical, those little leather tags with my apartment number that the landlord provided. Even the scratches on the keys match up. I thought maybe I was confused. Maybe I'd made a 3rd copy at some point and forgot. But I called the landlord's management company. They have records. 2 sets of keys were made when I moved in. That's it. They even checked with the hardware store they use. No additional copies on file. So where did the 3rd set come from? It gets weirder. 2 weeks later, I lost my keys again. And I mean really lost them this time. I was at Lincoln Park Zoo with my nephew, and somewhere between the gorillas and the big cats, my keys vanished. I checked with Lost and Found, retraced our steps, nothing. No problem, I thought. I've got 2 spare sets now. Got home, opened the junk drawer. 3 sets of keys, not 2, 3. I now have 4 identical sets of keys to my apartment. I started an experiment. I numbered each set with a tiny dot of nail polish. 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, 4 dots. Then I deliberately lost set number 4. I threw it in the Chicago River. I watched it sink. A week later, I was cleaning out my winter coat pockets, getting ready to put it in storage. Set number 4 was in the inside pocket. The nail polish dots were still there. 4 dots, clear as day. I've stopped trying to lose them. I've stopped counting how many sets I have. But sometimes I'll open that junk drawer and there's 5 sets in there. Sometimes 6. Once, I counted 8. My lease is up in 2 months. I'm moving. I'm supposed to return 2 sets of keys when I go. I'm really curious what's going to happen when I try. Man, the duplicate keys thing really gets me. It's such a mundane object, but when reality starts copying and pasting physical items, that's when you know something's seriously off. Okay, this next one is longer, and it involves someone actually investigating their glitch. This comes from a retired detective, which makes it even more interesting. Story 4. The Office That Shouldn't Exist by U1 Retired Detective 41. I spent 32 years as a detective in Portland, Oregon. I'm trained to notice details, to question everything, to look for logical explanations. That's why what happened to me last spring bothers me so much. I can't solve it. I retired in 2019 and started doing part-time security consulting to keep busy. Last April, I had a meeting with a potential client in a downtown office building, one of those 1920s Art Deco buildings that Portland has a bunch of. The address was 1437 S.W. Morrison, Suite 414. I arrived early, as always. The building lobby was exactly what you'd expect. Marble floors, brass elevator doors, that old building smell of floor wax and ancient paper. I checked the directory. Suite 414 was listed as Meridian Consulting Group. That matched my appointment. The elevator was one of those old-fashioned ones with the metal gate you have to close manually. 4th floor, turn right. Suite 414 was at the end of the hall. Frosted glass door with the company name in gold lettering. I knocked, entered. Normal reception area, desk, couple of chairs, bad art on the walls. The receptionist, a woman maybe 40 years old with red hair, told me Mr. Davidson would be with me shortly. She offered me coffee, which I accepted. It tasted burnt, like office coffee always does. I waited maybe 10 minutes. Then Mr. Davidson came out. Tall guy, salt and pepper beard, expensive suit. We shook hands. His palm was sweaty, and he led me back to his office. We talked for about an hour. He wanted a security assessment for his import business, showed me manifests, shipping routes, warehouse locations. All very detailed, very legitimate looking. He was particularly concerned about theft at their warehouse out in Gresham. We scheduled a follow-up for the next week, where I'd tour the warehouse and give him a proposal. When I left, I took one of his business cards from the receptionist's desk. Meridian Consulting Group, Import-Export Solutions, Suite 414, 1437 S.W. Morrison. Even had a little embossed logo. A week later, I showed up for our follow-up meeting. Same building, same lobby. But when the elevator opened on the 4th floor, something was wrong. The hallway looked different, older. The carpet was different, brown instead of blue. I walked to the end of the hall. Suite 414 was there, but it wasn't Meridian Consulting. The frosted glass said, Larson and Associates, Attorneys at Law. I stood there for probably a full minute, just staring at that door. Then I knocked and went in. Completely different office, different layout, different furniture, different everything. An elderly receptionist looked up at me over her glasses. I asked about Meridian Consulting. She'd never heard of it. I asked about Mr. Davidson. No recognition. I asked how long Larson and Associates had been in Suite 414. She gave me a look like I was crazy and said 23 years. I showed her Davidson's business card. She studied it, shrugged, handed it back. I went down to the building management office in the basement, showed them the card, asked about Meridian Consulting. The property manager pulled out his tenant records. Larson and Associates had been in Suite 414 since 1998. There was no record of Meridian Consulting anywhere in the building. Never had been. But I had the business card. I had the notes from my meeting, written in my own handwriting. I had the follow-up appointment in my calendar. I did what any detective would do. I investigated. The phone number on the card just rang and rang. No voicemail. The email bounced back as undeliverable. The website listed on the card didn't exist. I ran the business, name through every database I still had access to. Nothing. No business license, no tax ID, no corporate filing. Meridian Consulting Group didn't exist, but I met with them. I drank their burnt coffee. I shook Davidson's sweaty hand. I sat in that office for an hour discussing security protocols for warehouses I later confirmed also don't exist. I even checked my phone. I always silence it during meetings, and my phone log showed it was on silent from 2:13 to 3:24 p.m. that day. Exactly the time I was in that meeting. I went back to that building 3 more times over the next month, always at different times of day. Suite 414 was always Larson and Associates. I even paid a buddy who's a private investigator to go check it out without telling him why. Same result, law office, been there for decades. I still have Davidson's business card. I keep it in my wallet. Sometimes I pull it out just to make sure it's real, that I didn't imagine it. The cardstock is thick, expensive. The embossing is crisp. The edges are starting to wear from how often I handle it. I spent 3 decades solving mysteries. This is the only one I can't crack. Where was I for that hour? Who was Mr. Davidson? What was Meridian Consulting Group? And why do I remember every single detail of an office that apparently never existed? Hey, it's me. I want to ask you something a little strange. Do you ever get that feeling when you're driving, especially on a long trip, where you suddenly can't remember the last 10 or 15 minutes, like you were on autopilot? I know that's supposed to be normal, highway hypnosis and all that, but sometimes I wonder if those are the moments when reality is just buffering. Like we're in a loading screen, and our consciousness just kind of pauses while everything catches up. I had that happen last week, driving back from my parents' place, and when I came to, I was 20 miles further than I should have been based on the time. The clock said 3:47, but I distinctly remember checking it at 3:45, just before I zoned out. 20 miles in 2 minutes? I did the math 3 times, still doesn't add up. Anyway, just something I've been thinking about. All right, let's get back to the glitches. Story 5. The language. I shouldn't understand. By you, Maria, from Texas. This happened 6 months ago, and I still get chills thinking about it. I'm a nurse in Houston, and I only speak English and really basic Spanish, like enough to ask where it hurts and count to 10. That's important for what happened. I was working a night shift in the ER. Around 2 a.m., paramedics brought in an elderly woman who'd had a fall. She was conscious but disoriented, speaking in what sounded like Russian or some Eastern European language. Nobody on shift spoke whatever she was speaking, and she didn't seem to understand English. I was helping get her settled, checking her vitals, when suddenly I understood her. Not like I was translating in my head. I just understood. She was saying her hip hurt, that she lived alone, that her cat needed to be fed. I responded without thinking, told her we'd take care of her, that the pain medication would help soon. She grabbed my hand and started crying, saying thank you over and over for speaking her language. That's when I realized what was happening. I was speaking to her in whatever language she was speaking. Words were coming out of my mouth that I didn't recognize, but I knew what I was saying. It was like my mouth was on autopilot, while my brain watched in confusion. Another nurse, Jennifer, was in the room. She was staring at me with her mouth open. Later, she told me I was speaking fluent Russian. She recorded part of it on her phone because she couldn't believe it. For about 15 minutes, I could understand and speak perfect Russian. I knew medical terms I shouldn't know in English, let alone Russian. I was able to get her full medical history, her medications, her allergies, everything. Then, like someone flipped a switch, it stopped. Mid-sentence, I just couldn't anymore. The woman was asking me something, and it went back to being completely foreign. I tried to respond, but the words were gone. I couldn't even remember what I'd just been saying. Jennifer showed me the recording later. It was definitely me speaking Russian. She had her boyfriend, who's actually from Russia, listen to it. He said it was perfect Russian, not even with an accent. He said I sounded like I was from Moscow. I've never studied Russian. I've never even been around Russian speakers. My grandparents were from Mexico, and my other grandparents were Irish. No connection to Russia whatsoever. The patient, Mrs. Volkov, recovered fine. Before she was discharged, she came to thank me with a translator. She asked where I learned such beautiful Russian. I couldn't explain it. How do you tell someone you temporarily spoke their language by accident? I've tried to learn Russian since then, downloaded apps, watched videos. I can't do it. It's completely foreign to me. But for those 15 minutes, I was fluent. The recording is the only proof it happened. Sometimes I listen to it just to convince myself I'm not crazy. That's me speaking Russian. But I don't speak Russian. How does that even work? Stories like that make me think about how much our brains might be capable of that we just can't normally access. Like the information is there, locked away somewhere. Speaking of information appearing from nowhere, this next one's about the opposite problem. Story 6. The Day Everyone Forgot Me, by You Invisible in Indiana. Last Tuesday, I stopped existing for about 3 hours. I'm completely serious. I went to work like normal. I'm an accountant at a medium-sized firm in Indianapolis. Been there 8 years. I badged in at 8:47 a.m. The system logged it. I checked later. But when I got to my desk, someone else was sitting there. Not just sitting there. Their stuff was there. Family photos, their coffee mug, their jacket on, the chair. It was Sandra from Receivables. I said, "Sandra, I think you're at the wrong desk." She looked right through me. Not like she was ignoring me, like I wasn't there at all. I touched her shoulder. Nothing. She didn't react. I went to my boss's office, knocked, walked in. He was on a call. I stood right in front of his desk, waving my hands. Nothing. He looked right through me. I was completely solid. I could touch things, move things. I picked up his coffee mug and moved it. He noticed that, did a double take, moved it back, looked confused. But he couldn't see me. I tried everything. Yelled, jumped up and down, knocked things over. People would notice the effects, the knocked over items, the moving objects, but not me. They'd look confused, fix whatever I'd moved and go back to work. My phone didn't work. I mean, it worked, but when I called anyone, it wouldn't connect. Texts wouldn't send. Emails bounced back immediately. I went home. My key worked, but my apartment looked different. My stuff was there but arranged wrong. My photos on the wall were gone. My cat acted like she'd never seen me before, hissed and ran away. I'm not proud of this, but I started to panic. I went back outside and tried to get anyone to acknowledge me. Stood in front of cars. They'd swerve around me without seeing me. Walked into stores. Automatic doors would open, but cashiers couldn't see or hear me. For 3 hours, I didn't exist. Then, at exactly noon, I was watching a clock in a McDonald's when it happened. Everyone could see me again. The cashier suddenly said, "Can I help you?" Like I'd just appeared. I ran back to work. My desk was mine again. My boss asked where I'd been all morning. The badge system showed I'd entered at 8:47 a.m., but then had no other activity until 12:03 p.m., when I rebadged in. Sandra didn't remember sitting at my desk. My boss didn't remember his coffee mug moving. Nobody remembered anything unusual from that morning. My cat acted normal when I got home. My photos were back on the wall. I'm rational. I'm logical. I wasn't under the influence of anything. I wasn't sick. But for 3 hours last Tuesday, I was erased. The only proof I have is a 3-hour gap in my work activity log that IT can't explain, and a parking ticket on my car from 10:43 a.m. that morning. The officer wrote, "Vehicle appears abandoned" in the notes. I was sitting in the driver's seat when he wrote it. Okay, that one legitimately gives me the creeps. The idea of being erased while still being conscious. That's nightmare fuel. All right, let me share something that's more about reality itself, seeming to glitch out. Story 7. The Pixel Sky by Digital Dave, Colorado. I'm a photographer, so I notice light and visual details more than most people. That's why I know what I saw wasn't normal. 3 weeks ago, I was doing a sunrise shoot at Garden of the Gods here in Colorado Springs. I'd gotten up at 4 a.m. to be there before dawn, wanted to catch that golden hour, light on the red rocks. It was about 5:45 a.m., still pretty dark, but starting to lighten up in the east. I was setting up my tripod when I noticed something wrong with the sky. At first, I thought it was my eyes adjusting to the darkness, or maybe I was more tired than I thought. But no, part of the sky was pixelated. I mean literally pixelated, like a low-resolution JPEG that hasn't fully loaded. A rectangular section of sky, maybe 30 degrees of my field of vision, looked like it was rendered at maybe 360p, while everything else was in real-life 4K. I rubbed my eyes, blinked hard. It was still there. The pixels were large enough that I could see individual squares of color. Dark blue, lighter blue, a few that were kind of purplish. They weren't moving or shimmering. It was just a low-res patch of sky. I immediately started taking photos. Through my camera viewfinder, it looked even more obvious. The contrast between the normal sky and the pixelated section was sharp, like someone had pasted a low-quality image patch into reality. Here's where it gets really weird. Other people started showing up for sunrise. It's a popular spot. I pointed it out to a jogger who stopped to stretch. He saw it too. His exact words were, "What the hell is that?" We both stood there staring at this glitched piece of sky. Then a couple with hiking gear came by. They saw it. The woman took out her phone to record it. And that's when things got stranger. On her phone screen, the pixelated section looked different. Still pixelated, but the pixels were arranged differently, showing different colors. On my camera's LCD, it looked different again. We compared 3 devices, 3 different versions of the same glitched sky. I've been photographing for 15 years. I know about atmospheric phenomena. I know about optical illusions. This wasn't that. This was like reality itself had a rendering error. We watched it for about 10 minutes. Then, as the sun started to rise and the sky got brighter, the pixelated section just resolved. Like watching a YouTube video suddenly jump from 360p to 1080p. 1 second it was pixelated, the next it was normal sky. I have 17 photos of it. The jogger exchanged numbers with me. He saw it too. He knows it was real. The couple with the phones, I don't know who they were, but they were freaking out just as much as we were. When I got home, I went through the photos on my computer. The pixelated section is there in every shot, but it looks slightly different in each photo, even ones taken seconds apart. Like the pixels were refreshing or trying to resolve but couldn't quite get there. I've shown the photos to other photographers. Some say it's a camera malfunction, but that doesn't explain why we all saw it with our naked eyes, or why it showed up differently on 3 different devices. Others just go quiet when they see them. I've been back to Garden of the Gods every morning since. Same spot, same time. The sky's been normal. But I keep watching, waiting to see if it'll glitch again. Sometimes I wonder, if the sky can pixelate, what else around us might be rendering errors that we just don't notice? Man, the pixel sky story really makes you think. We assume reality has infinite resolution, but what if it doesn't? What if there's a maximum quality setting, and sometimes it drops? This last one for this section is about a different kind of glitch, the kind where objects just don't behave like they should. Story 8. The coffee mug that wouldn't break by you, physics teacher, Ohio. I teach high school physics, so I understand how objects behave under normal conditions. What happened with my coffee mug violates several laws of physics, and I can't explain it. It started 2 months ago. I have this ceramic mug, nothing special, just a blue mug with "World's Okayest Teacher" on it that a student gave me years ago. I was carrying it to my classroom, full of coffee, when I tripped on absolutely nothing in the hallway. The mug went flying. It hit the ground hard, bounced, yes, bounced, about 3 feet in the air, hit the ground again, and rolled to a stop. Completely intact, coffee everywhere, but the mug was fine. Ceramic doesn't bounce, not like that. It was like dropping a rubber ball. I picked it up, examined it. No cracks, no chips. I thought maybe I'd misjudged what happened, adrenaline and all that. A week later, I accidentally knocked it off my desk. It fell 4 feet onto linoleum over concrete. Same thing, bounced, rolled, perfectly fine. I'm a physics teacher. I had to test this. I took it home and deliberately dropped it on my kitchen floor from counter height. It bounced. I dropped it from head height. It bounced higher. I went outside and threw it at my concrete driveway as hard as I could. It bounced back up so high I had to dodge it. This is a normal ceramic coffee mug. It should shatter. I showed my colleague who teaches chemistry. We did every test we could think of. It's definitely ceramic. Sounds like ceramic. Feels like ceramic. Conducts heat like ceramic. But it won't break. We took it to the football field. I stood on the bleachers, about 20 feet up, and dropped it onto concrete. It bounced back up maybe 15 feet, landed, bounced again, and rolled to a stop. Not a scratch. Here's the truly weird part. It only happens when it's falling or being thrown. If I hit it with a hammer, nothing happens. I mean, the hammer bounces off like I'm hitting rubber, but the mug doesn't bounce. If I try to bend it or crush it in a vise, it acts like normal ceramic, rigid, no flex at all. But drop it? It becomes basically indestructible and bouncy. I've been documenting everything. Videos, measurements, calculations. The coefficient of restitution, basically how bouncy something is, changes depending on the drop height. That's impossible. That value should be constant for a given material. My students think it's hilarious. They've nicknamed it the immortal mug. I still use it every day for coffee. It's sitting on my desk right now, looking completely normal. But sometimes I pick it up and just stare at it. It's a regular coffee mug that happens to be indestructible when dropped. It shouldn't exist. It violates conservation of energy, material physics, everything I know to be true. Yet there it is, holding my coffee, existing impossibly. What really gets me about that story is how he just keeps using it. Like, you discover an object that breaks physics, and you're just like, yeah, but it still holds coffee, so whatever. I actually had something similar happen with a pencil once, when I was in college. Not the bouncing thing, but it would not sharpen. I'd put it in the sharpener, go through the motions, and nothing. The wood would shave off, but the graphite stayed exactly the same length. Used 3 different sharpeners. Even tried a knife. The graphite just wouldn't get shorter. I used that pencil for an entire semester, and it never needed sharpening. Still have it somewhere in a box in my closet. Never found another one like it. Sometimes I wonder if these objects are like little tests, like someone's checking to see if we notice when the rules change. All right, let's keep going with more stories. Story 9. The Photo I Didn't Take, by you, Michigan Melanie. I'm looking at a photograph that shouldn't exist, and it's driving me insane. Last month, my family had a reunion at my parents' lake house in northern Michigan. Big gathering, all my siblings, their kids, my aunts and uncles, about 30 people total. We do this every summer, same weekend in July, same house my grandparents built in the 60s. On Saturday afternoon, we did the traditional group photo on the dock. Everyone gathered. My brother set up his camera on a tripod with a timer, and we took maybe 5 or 6 shots to make sure we got one, where everyone was looking at the camera and nobody was blinking. That night, my brother was going through the photos on his laptop, picking the best one to print for everyone. He called me over, confused. In one of the photos, the third one we took, I'm in it twice. I'm standing with my husband on the left side of the group, wearing my red sundress, holding my daughter. Normal. But I'm also on the right side, back row, wearing the jean shorts and white tank top I'd worn that morning before I changed for dinner. Same face, same hair pulled back in a ponytail, same everything. Just different clothes and a different position. My first thought was Photoshop, some kind of joke. But my brother showed me the raw file straight from his camera's memory card. The metadata showed it was taken at 3:47 p.m. that day. No editing. We looked at the photos taken right before and right after. In those, I'm only in one spot, the left side in the red sundress. It's just that one photo where I appear twice. Here's what really messes with me. I remember being in both spots. I remember standing with my husband, holding our daughter, her wiggling because she wanted to go swim. But I also remember standing in the back row, between my cousin Derek and my Aunt Susan, thinking I should have worn something nicer than shorts. Both memories are equally clear, equally real. My family's been going over this for weeks. Everyone who was there remembers me in the red sundress on the left. That's where I actually was. But 3 people, my cousin Derek, my Aunt Susan, and my Uncle Pat, swear they remember me standing in the back row too. Derek even said he remembered joking with me about being too short to be in the back row. I've had the photo analyzed by 2 different photography experts. Both confirmed it's genuine. No manipulation, no double exposure, no technical explanation. One of them got really quiet when he looked at it and just said, "I don't know how this is possible." The other me in the photo, the one in shorts, is doing something different too. The me in the sundress is smiling normally, looking at the camera. The me in shorts is looking slightly to the side, like something caught my attention off camera. When I zoom in on her face, my face, there's this expression I can't quite read. Not scared exactly, but aware. Like she knows she shouldn't be there. I've gone through every photo from that weekend. Every other picture. I'm singular, normal, one person in one place. It's just that one moment, captured at 3:47 p.m. on July 15th, where I existed twice in the same space. We've had that reunion at the lake house for 23 years. Same dock, same spot for the photo. I've started wondering how many other versions of me might be in those photos that we just haven't noticed. How many times have I been in 2 places at once without realizing it? The photo is framed on my wall now. Most people don't notice unless I point it out. But sometimes I catch myself staring at it, at both versions of me, trying to remember being in both places at the same time. And the weird thing is, I can. I remember both simultaneously, like my memory is split-screened. Is that even possible? That one really gets to me because photographic evidence changes everything. You can doubt your memory, but a camera doesn't lie. Or at least, it's not supposed to. Here's a quicker one that's just pure unsettling. Story 10. The Backwards Runner by Seattle Sprinter. This happened during the Seattle Marathon last year, and I still can't process it. I was around mile 15, running through the university district. If you've ever run a marathon, you know that by mile 15, you're pretty focused on just keeping your pace. You're not really paying attention to much else. But this was impossible to miss. There was a runner about 50 feet ahead of me, wearing bright orange gear. Nothing unusual about that. But he was running backwards. Not like jogging backwards for fun or to stretch different muscles. He was running full speed, marathon pace, facing the wrong direction. My first thought was he's showing off. Some people juggle during marathons, others wear costumes. Running backwards for a bit isn't that weird. But he never turned around. Not once. I kept pace behind him for maybe half a mile, watching. His form was perfect. If you filmed him and reversed the video, it would look like normal running. His arms pumped normally, his stride was even. But everything was backwards. Here's the truly bizarre part. Nobody else seemed to notice. Hundreds of runners, spectators lining the streets, police at intersections. Nobody was pointing. Nobody was taking pictures. It was like I was the only one who could see that this guy was running the wrong way. I sped up to pass him. As I got alongside, I looked over. He was maybe 40 years old, clean-shaven, focused expression. He was sweating normally, breathing hard like you would at mile 15. But his eyes... He wasn't looking behind him to see where he was going. His eyes were focused straight ahead, which was behind him, if that makes sense. Like he could see through the back of his head. I said, "Hey, impressive backwards running." He didn't respond, didn't even blink, just kept running backwards at that perfect pace. I passed him, looked back, still running backwards. I lost sight of him in the crowd. At the finish line, I asked other runners if they'd seen the backwards runner in orange. Nobody had. I checked the marathon photos online later. They photograph everyone at multiple points. I found myself in dozens of photos. No orange backwards runner in any of them, even ones where he should have been right next to me. But I know what I saw. I ran next to him for half a mile. I studied his form. He was running backwards at marathon pace for at least that long, probably the whole race. The marathon results are all online. I've been through every single finisher. Nobody was wearing orange in their official photos. There's no record of him. Sometimes I wonder if I saw someone running the marathon in reverse. Not backwards, reverse. Like living it from finish to start. But that makes even less sense. What was he? Why could only I see him? Okay, that backwards runner story makes my brain hurt trying to logic it out. Like, was time moving differently for him? Was he even really there? These are the questions that keep me up at night. All right, this next one is a deep dive. Someone really investigated their glitch.